Like so many of us, 2020 literally pulled the rug out from under my feet, and when all was said and done, my life was a hot mess. And now here I am at 40-something, healing from depression and anxiety, doing my best to live my best hot mess life, all while making some magic and miracles along the way, using the same sacred feminine principles that I've been preaching for so long. And now I get to share all of that with you. My name is Maria, aka the Femme Coach, and you're listening to the Femcast podcast, the podcast for wild, sassy, and spiritual women who are ready to tap into their sacred feminine superpowers to live their best hot mess life. This podcast is listener discretion advised for mature content and coarse language. Hey you guys, what is up and welcome back to the Femcast. I find it hilarious because I actually already recorded this episode that I'm about to re-record again right now. I recorded it again earlier today, actually. And lo and behold, because I shared about a lesson that had been really coming through for me in the last couple of weeks and really been made evidently clear to me. And as I shared about it, the perfect example and illustration of what I was talking about happened right after I recorded the episode. And I felt like, oh my God, I cannot not share this. So here I am. Later in the evening, I'm feeling a little lazy and sleepy because I didn't sleep much last night, and I'm half a glass of wine in, watching Vicky Cristina Barcelona and thinking, okay, you know what? I need to re-record that because I cannot not share how it all unfolded today. So, the podcast that I recorded earlier was about the blessing and the curse of being a empathic people pleaser. The two often go hand in hand, being empathic and a people pleaser. They really do, but they don't have to. Someone who's empathic can really pick up on other people's emotions and can often feel what they're feeling before they even know what they're feeling. And can kind of tune into what they need before they communicate it. Which is a very powerful gift. It can empower you to be a very nurturing, caring, healing, someone to have around. Maybe I shouldn't have had half a glass of wine before I started to hit that record button, but we'll see how well we do. Being a people pleaser, obviously, is when you go out of your way to please everyone else because so much of your own self-worth is tied into pleasing the people around you and the people that you're in relationship with, which is a very difficult situation to be in. And oftentimes, the way you break that pattern is to pull back from pleasing others around you to get all that external validation and really going inward to fill that void for yourself and to find that self-worth and that value within yourself. So the two combined are a very interesting combination because although as an empathic people pleaser, you are now a powerful source of healing for so many and nurturing and caring and transformation, and you can really do so much good and really be able to reach, go beyond like the confines of like your family, your immediate circle, maybe reaching out into your community or even more than that. It really gives you this mega capacity to just either reach a lot of people and support them in a powerful way, or, find those people who really just need your support the most and really be able to give them a profound source of support and healing. That's the blessing. The curse. People pleasers will, when we talk about needing to please people in your environment in order to feel good about who you are and feeling good about what you bring to the relationship and how worthy you feel and how loved you feel and how secure you feel in that relationship, right? When you start to feel like you're not pleasing someone, it's a very sticky slope of fearing that they'll notice that you're not good enough, that they'll leave you, that they'll abandon you, that you'll be rejected, that you'll be left alone. Like there's a lot of fear around people pleasing, right? It is a fear-based behavior and pattern. Add to that an empathic nature, and you have a recipe for disaster. Because as an empathic, you can pick up on people's emotional cues very quickly. You can pick up on their happiness, their sadness, their love, their hate, their all of it. And when someone is in a bit of a funk, maybe having a bad day, angry, frustrated, depressed, you'll pick it up very quickly. And you'll know you'll know that this person's not happy, this person's not feeling good, this person's not content with their surroundings at the moment or what's happening at the moment. And as a people pleaser, your first inclination is to think, oh my God, what have I done wrong? And number two, what do I need to do to fix this? And make up for my own shortcomings. And that puts you in a very toxic pattern of picking up on other people's picking up on other people's emotional cues and assuming that anytime they're not happy or contented, that it's somehow your fault and responsibility and that it's now up to you to fix it. And what really tends to happen is if you are an empathic people pleaser, all it takes is one situation, right? One person to show up and, not be at their best that day and maybe be a little crusty with you or short and, maybe they don't respond to you in the right way or they give you kind of like a funny look that you have to you kind of crinkle your eyebrows. You're like, what does that mean? What did they mean when they gave me that look? What did that look mean? What did they mean what were they really meaning when they said that? Or what did they not say? And, that they were kind of keeping from the conversation. And now you start to overanalyze. Now you start to obsess. And now you start to overthink and retrace again and again the conversation and what happened and what did they say and everything that you said and where you might have possibly gone into some sort of behavior or made some sort of comment or something that in some way disappointed them. And now you're at risk of being abandoned and rejected. Now you're freaking out. And now you're like, oh my God, I need to fix this. What can I do? And now you're obsessively thinking about fixing it. And you're obsessively thinking, oh my God, I've disappointed them. And then what usually ends up happening is you end up feeling like a big failure. Enter all the other examples of people who are maybe having a bad day or, didn't go out of their way to affirm how happy they were with you or, maybe they were just tired and they didn't seem as enthused as they normally are. Whatever the case is, now you feel like you're surrounded by people who are just disappointed in you, And I say this from personal experience, I've been empathic my whole life, and people pleasing is something that really I didn't even know was a thing because it just came second nature to me since I was a kid. I didn't really know what it was until, several years ago, and since then have been diligently and mindfully trying to stay aware of it so that I can choose differently and take different actions than I would normally take or that I would sometimes be inclined to take. It takes work. Doesn't go away overnight. It's something that I've seen in myself and I see the blessing in it. And I try to focus on how I can use that to do good while at the same time being mindful of where and how I invest my energy and my thoughts. So is it perfect? No. Do I spiral? Yes. And this week was really one of those weeks. Now, I'm recording this the Thursday before the full moon in November 2021, which is a full moon in Taurus, and I'm a Taurus. So this has really been shown to me as a pattern that has been long-standing for me, and how far it can actually go. Like for the last couple of weeks, I would say I've been feeling like I've been kind of hitting the mark, missing the mark with everyone, and failing at certain things, and people feeling like looking very disappointed around me and very frustrated. And, a lot of blaming myself for a lot of that, and a lot of obsessing over, okay, what can I do differently to change a situation? Or what can I do differently to bring more positivity into this relationship? What can I do differently to change the vibration of what I'm feeling? And it at many times in the last week or two, it has been that, negative spiral of thoughts that it's like a train wreck. Like you just can't stop it. And it just keeps going and going and going and going until finally it's just like you kind of like hit like a mental rock bottom. You wig out, and you settle down for a little bit, and then you go on the ride all over again as soon as something else sets you off. So it can be very frustrating, and it really takes a toll on you. It's exhausting. It takes a toll on your energy. It takes a toll on your ability to be effective and creative in your life, and to really enjoy things, It can really burn you out. It takes a lot of energy. All that overthinking and obsessing takes so much bloody energy. It's insane. And it's funny. So I'll give you an example. So I've been feeling like this with, a lot of the relationships in my life, and especially at work. It's been a stressful time at work, and I've noticed that people have been a little bit on edge. And I've really taken on the responsibility for a lot of that, knowing full well that there was a lot going on at work, and that people were stressed out. But when people weren't talking to me and, singing my praises like they usually do, or keeping the meetings short, or taking forever to respond, or keeping the messages, really curt and concise, I start to question, oh my God, I'm failing, I'm screwing up. When I have a conversation where, I share something that, I'm really reluctant to share because I don't know how the message is going to be received. And it was for the most part received really well. And I was very supported through the entire process. But then this distance kind of came out of nowhere. So now I'm left thinking, oh my God, are they second guessing supporting me in that conversation? Are they second guessing the actions that they took? Was there in some way a change of heart or something that led them to believe, maybe we shouldn't have supported her in that, or, maybe they're seeing things differently. Maybe they're seeing me differently now. All this train wreck of thoughts. And this has been going on for a week or two. And there had been a lot of silence and just a lot of people not communicating as kindly and as openly and as a friendly manner as they normally would. And it was nothing personal. Nobody was mean by any means. Nobody was mean at all. But they were just, there was a lot going on, and people were mentally just focused on everything else that was happening. And, we're communicating and reciprocating at the very bare minimum, right? So obviously I took this to mean, okay, obviously I screwed up. Something's wrong. They're not singing my praises anymore. Obviously there's something going on here, and they're disappointed in me in some way, shape, or form. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. Oh my God, they're going to give it to someone else. Oh, so-and-so is going to do better at my job than I am. Like all these crazy thoughts, right? And this is not the first time this has happened. This has happened before. And it usually leads me to self-sabotage, where I have a confrontational conversation, or I leave and start looking for another job because I just assume they're not happy with me. And then I get really frustrated because there's nothing worse than a people pleaser that feels like she's not pleasing people, right? I need to find an environment where I'm pleasing people, or I'm just not going to be happy. It can make me very It can make you very disgruntled, and very confrontational and very defensive. So knowing all of the stuff and the thoughts that were running through my head telling me that I had screwed up, and that people weren't happy with me. Knowing that I have a tendency to do that, I chose to just say, okay, we're just going to let this moment pass. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to take any action. I'm not going to send any emails. I'm not going to send out any resumes. I'm not going to book any interviews. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to be in it. Honor it. It's here. I'm uncomfortable. Let's figure out why. And here's the thing. Whenever you're putting your focus or attentions outside yourself, right? So whenever you're putting your focus or attention to fix something outside yourself, it's usually something that you're avoiding within yourself. That needs your attention and that needs some TLC. So, having said that, I recognized what I was doing. I was putting all my focus and attention on things that were going on around me and other people's approval and other people's validation and why I wasn't receiving it and what I had done wrong in order to not receive it. Seeing it very clearly, I said, okay, I see what's happening. So instead of focusing on that and instead of taking an action from this triggered place where I'm at, and I'm telling you, it feels like you want to vomit. It's so unnerving, like it's this horrible pit in your stomach. I just say, you know what? I'm just going to sit with this because I know that this will pass. And when this passes, this might all look very different to me. So I waited. I let it pass. Did it get uncomfortable? Oh, fuck yes. It got very uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable. And there were moments where I would tailspin again and go into that negative thought process. I would pull myself back up and continue feeling the feels, feeling the uncomfortableness. I would spiral again. And I just let it keep happening, and I just kept feeling it. And in many cases, I actually looked at my worst case scenario. Worst case scenario was they were disappointed with me. Maybe I would lose my job. And then I would literally walk myself through that worst case until I felt like, okay, you know what? It would be okay. I would find another job. I'm very qualified at what I do. This is not the be all end all. Resources and abundance don't come to me just from this one place. They can come to me from all sorts of sources, and it's really not up to me, kind of thing, right? So just reaffirming all these beautiful confirmations that abundance is everywhere, and that not all would not be lost. Would it be a challenge? Of course. Would I be the first person to go through that challenge? Absolutely not. These people go through these things all the time. But what inevitably ended up happening in that process is I addressed the part of me that was afraid of not being safe and not being secure and not being provided for. Okay, great. So we dealt with that. So now it's just the idea of not being liked or approved of or being abandoned or rejected. Okay, so that's a deeper wound. So that took more time. And it was really about going back and just affirming to myself that, number one, I am responsible for my own well-being. I am worthy. I am enough. And validating that for myself and knowing that no one else in the world can validate that for me. And if someone is disappointed in me or in any relationship, not just in work, in any relationship, if someone is disappointed in you and they're not communicating that to you in a healthy, constructive way, then that is really on them. That's not on you. So if my coworkers, my bosses, my friends, my family, or whoever, if anyone was unhappy with me and they weren't communicating to me as to why or what I had done wrong, then the onus is kind of on them, And, it's really sad when you get used to being in very passive-aggressive relationships where that behavior is kind of normal, to not communicate what you're upset about and to just sort of act in passive-aggressive ways until the other person figures out that you must be upset. Let's talk about it, Very unhealthy. But it starts to feel like it's normal, right? And that just reaffirms that, oh my God, this person is upset with me because they're acting in this way. When really, in a normal, healthy relationship, chances are they're acting that way because they're having a bad day. So start to look at it that way. Maybe this person's just having a bad day. Maybe they're just not at their best. And if you're not feeling triggered, if you're feeling okay, and if you're feeling strong and grounded and balanced. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I'm picking up on a little bit of frustration, disappointment. Is there anything going on? Is there anything you want to talk about? Create the safe space. Use that empathic nature to create the safe space for honest and open communication. If they still don't want to talk about it, or if they come at you, that's on them. That's not on you. But chances are it's got nothing to do with you. And even if they do blame you, chances are you're triggering something else within them that goes deeper than that. So we are each responsible for our own well-being. And, I truly believe in radical self-acceptance and responsibility, which means accepting yourself fully and completely and unconditionally as you are, and taking full responsibility and ownership of everything that you feel, see, and experience. And that's what this is all about. So, going back to the story where I felt like, everyone was upset and disappointed with me and I was about to get rejected or abandoned or fired or whatever. I moved through all those feelings. I moved through all that uncomfortableness. I moved through that horrible, sinking, gut-wrenching feeling and allowed it to just be present and not take action, and tell myself I am not taking any action. And I did this very intentionally. I refuse to take any action until I do not feel triggered, until I feel balanced and centered and grounded. And then if I still feel like there needs to be a conversation, I will have it. But until I feel that, I am not taking any action whatsoever other than to just be in this energy. Because number one, you'll probably take the wrong action. You'll self-sabotage. You'll get very reactive, defensive, or make some sort of a very irrational decision that you're going to end up regretting. Or even if you don't do any of the above, you'll just bring a lot of funky energy into the interaction, and then that person's going to pick up on your funky energy, and before you know it, you're in this toxic, funky dynamic that you don't know how to fix because you don't know how it started. I speak from experience. Please trust me on this. So I sat through it and I let it just ride, and then it was a few days of feeling the angst of that. And then today was really the epiphany of, this has been the blessing and the curse for me of my journey is this journey of being both empathic and a people pleaser. And, being aware of how it does have a very potent shadow side to it. It has a very beautiful blessing to it, but it does have a shadow side, one that needs to be, you need to be mindful and aware of. And it became really evident to me today. So today I sat down, I recorded the podcast explaining all of this. I hope I recaptured it because I love the way I explained it before, and I just hope I recaptured it as powerfully in this moment. I think I have. I hope I have. But the real, not epiphany, like the real miracle and magic in all of this is that after I recorded that episode and explained what was happening and explained what I was doing and how I was managing being in those feels and being in that uncomfortableness and riding that wave of that triggered empath / people pleaser, as soon as I recorded that episode, I received confirmation from everyone that I thought was completely unhappy with me, how supported I was in those relationships. Someone that I had reached out to in message and sent a beautiful message to, a friend of mine who had been, she's been such a huge inspiration for me in my life. And I sent her a message at the beginning of the week and I said, hey, I just want you to know, like, you've been such a huge part of this journey for me. And I really love what you're doing and you're such an inspiration. And, your message is really speaking for me. And I didn't hear back from her, even though she had read the message. And today she sent me the most beautiful, thoughtful message, an apology that it took her a week to get back to me. And then out of the blue, my boss messages me and says, hey, do you have time for a chat today? And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is it. I'm getting canned. I knew it. I totally effed up. I'm about to get called on it. It is what it is. I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. I totally got time for you. We get on a call. After he goes on for the first 5 minutes, just raving about the work that I'm doing and how much him and his boss appreciate everything that I've done and how much I've taken the pressure off them and the work that I do and the value that I bring. And I was almost in tears when he said this to me. Because I'm like, I can't believe how much of a failure that I was feeling like. And meanwhile, this is the truth behind what was happening. And then asked me for my input on how I thought things were going and how we can make things better. And if they were living up to, the promises and the values that they put out, into the team about how we want to showcase ourselves. And I was like, wow, like here I am feeling like an utter failure. And like, I've completely disappointed you and I'm about to get canned. Meanwhile, like the exact opposite is true. And I fully believe, right? And also another woman that I had reached out to connect with, because I thought she was she's another coach and healer. We were connected by someone else that in our circle that we know. And I had reached out to her like last week and I hadn't heard from her. I was like, hey, so-and-so said we should connect. Would love to hear more about what you do and whatnot. And, never heard back. And today she was like, oh, my messenger was down all week. I just got it back up and running. I would be so happy to connect with you. And I'm just like, wow. And all these messages literally came in, all of them within an hour of me recording that podcast. I truly believe that when we're in that energy, that funkiness, that uncomfortableness, we're meant to be in it because we're meant to see and experience and witness something and see the lesson in it. And I do believe that once we see it and own it and feel it and honor it and see the lesson that's being presented, the path clears. And that is the perfect example. And it's a perfect example of how the path clears once you see the lesson. And it's also the perfect example to how we can make up so many stories in our mind. And, we can look around us and we can see people's unhappiness and disappointment and really make it mean something about us and who we are and how we show up. And it can seem so real, like so real. And there's not an ounce of truth to it at all. And not only is there not an ounce of truth to it, we're also projecting it onto all of our relationships. The more we think about it, the more we stress about it, the more we project it. And then we start to see it everywhere. And nothing could be farther from the truth. Sure, will people be upset with us sometimes? Yes, of course, absolutely. We're all human. We all make mistakes. It's not the end of the world. And honestly, like if you're worried about being abandoned or rejected, if that person abandons or rejects you because you effed up, then they were never yours to begin with. They were never meant to be in your life. Always do things with the best intentions, always do things, with, always show up in your relationships with kindness and compassion. And, I do believe that, we need to take care of ourselves first. And that's a big part of this process, which we'll get into next. But I do also believe that we need to come into our relationships with the most compassionate energy and really just knowing who we're in relationship with and really accepting them fully as they are, even though they may not be perfect, knowing that that's who they are and that we are choosing to be in relationship with them, and all that entails, and just really accepting them as they are, and not putting any projections or expectations onto them of who we need them to be or what we need them to say or do in order to make us feel whole, good, and complete, right? Because at the end of the day, we are whole, good, and complete on our own. And if there's any reason in the world why we're not feeling that in any way, or that we need to turn to our environment to help us believe that or reaffirm that for us with external validation, then that's a void within ourselves that needs to be looked at. We can spend a lifetime avoiding the uncomfortable feelings and avoiding the lack of self-worth within ourselves and that self-value, and running after every single relationship to affirm that for us. And it ends up very empty. And it ends up no more toxic than a drug addiction. Addictions are very much the same thing. We're turning to our external world, whether it's drugs, alcohol, shopping, sex, TV, video games, food. We turn to all these things to fill a void, an emptiness, an unworthiness, a pain, to numb a pain that we're feeling. instead of just looking at the pain. And the way out, the way to freedom, the way to emotional freedom is to move through the pain and the discomfort. So for me, after this long-winded example of what I'm talking about, the biggest difference for me was really being able to pull back from a lot of these relationships. Not to sabotage them and cut them off because I didn't think that they loved me anymore, or that I was afraid that they were going to abandon me, which happens so often. But really just pulling back energetically. And anytime I felt myself needing them to say something, to comfort me, to soothe me, to make me, to say something or do something that would make my insecurity or my fear or my worry or my anxiety go away, or anytime I felt that, oh my God, I need to call them, I need to text them, I need to hear something from them to feel that, to know that things are okay, that's when I would stop and focus on myself and focus on the feelings that were coming up, focus on everything that was within those feelings, everything where they came from, what they were trying to show me. Having a good cry, journaling it out, my daily practice was sacred for me as I moved through this, because it really allowed me to journal what I was feeling and to reaffirm for myself all the ways that I was worthy and good enough, and to really intentionally move through my day, reminding myself of those things, and to detaching and breaking that addiction or that need for my world to do that for me. And really taking responsibility for that for myself. And that has been the biggest game changer, I think, for me. Is it 100%? No. Like I said, I still have moments where it gets the better of me, But I always have a choice. I always have a choice to just pull back and say, okay, no, I know the way out of this is not to avoid it. And I definitely know the way out of this is not to take an action or to yell at someone or get defensive or cut someone off or send a text message so that I can get that external validation that I'm so craving in this moment. It's the exact opposite. It's to actually sit in the discomfort and allow it to move and allow it to just be there for a little while and not make it mean anything about me. And just knowing full well, I know I have a tendency to do this. This too shall pass. And when it passes, if I still feel like I'm called to take that action or have that conversation or send that text message, then I will do it. But I'm not doing anything until I feel centered and balanced and strong within myself. And my journaling and daily practice is what kind of helped me get back to that center and balance and that sense of strength. So by all means, go check it out. It's on my website at www.thefemcoach.com. You see it on the main page there. It's totally free. 5 steps, 5 minutes is really all you need. It has a training video as well. So I encourage you and I invite you to download that daily practice today. It really has been a huge game changer for me. I have lots of daily practice tools in my little tickle trunk, but the 5 that I've included in the one that I share with you are probably my 5 main favorite go-tos. And were probably the most supportive for me, especially in the beginning, I think. So at the end of the day, it's all about loving yourself, making yourself feel worthy and whole and complete, and taking the pressure off your world to do that for you. And really just coming back to yourself. It's really a beautiful place to be. At the end of the day, we are all worthy, we are all valuable, and we are all enough. And the more we can align with that truth and actually really believe it, the more we'll start to experience that in the more our external environment will reflect that belief back to us. But it has to start from within. Okay? Let me know if this resonates for you. Let me know if you can relate to any of the stories that I shared here today. And if you do, let me know which of these practices or, affirmations or just little pieces of advice really spoke to you and that you're going to take away with you and apply. You can let me know in the comments below if you're seeing this on the blog, or send me an email at maria@thefemcoach.com. I always love to hear how these stories resonate for you. and how you're applying them and the difference that it makes. I love, love, love reading those emails. And I always make an effort to try and respond. So hit me up if you can. And until next time, massive love. You've been listening to the Femcast podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow and share. And don't forget to check out my website at www.thefemcoach.com for more resources and tools to help you harness your sacred feminine superpowers to create your best hot mess life. Until next time, massive love.